We've been here before. In 1976, political experts were reading the Republican Party its last rites. 4 years later, Republican Ronald Reagan won an election that changed the course of the GOP, the conservative movement, and history. Joining us on Newsmax TV and telling the incredible story of the 1980 campaign is influential public relations, marketing, and government affairs expert Craig Shirley, President and CEO of Shirley and Banister Public Affairs. He is the author of the 2005 bestseller, Reagan's Revolution. He is now the author of Rendezvous with Destiny, Ronald Reagan and the Campaign That Changed America. Welcome to Newsmax TV, Craig.
Thank you, Kathleen. Good to be here.
Why is this book important for us today? Is there some message for us? Obama just won a mandate and says he's modeling his revolution after Reagan's.
Well, I think that the revolution that he has in mind is not the revolution that Ronald Reagan had in mind. Obama has a fundamental belief in government, whereas Reagan, when he ran in 1980 and all through his career and his presidency, had a fundamental belief in the American people. Reagan was a populist. He believed that power did not flow downward from the top of the government to the people, but rather upward from the people to the national government, and that people were the masters of their own destiny, the captains of their own fate, and that ultimately it was the individual, and this he derived from the Enlightenment, from Thomas Paine, from other of the, he had a fundamental belief in the Constitution and the inherent rights of the individual, which is why such issues as tax cuts he embraced so wholly and warmly and aggressively, because he saw them not just as a means to stimulate the national economy, but as a way for people to lessen their dependence upon government and increase their dependence upon themselves.
Craig, let's chat about the 1980 race. You make some exciting revelations. You say the entire Kennedy family voted for Reagan.
Yes. Well, almost. I had two sources on that, and one of them was actually Robert Kennedy's daughter, Kathleen Kennedy Townsend. Is, of course, as you recall, Kathleen, that Ted Kennedy had challenged Jimmy Carter in the primaries, had lost, and the Kennedy family felt that the Carter campaign was too savage, too personal, and was too brutal toward their beloved Kennedy. And this was, of course, the family of long memories. And so when it came time for the election, virtually all of them voted for Ronald Reagan. The two lone exceptions were Jackie Onassis, who voted for John Anderson, who was running as a third-party candidate that year, and Kathleen herself. But she did so in a unique way. Kathleen took her 3-year-old daughter, Megan, into the polling place and let Megan pull the lever for Jimmy Carter, so Kathleen could always say that she herself never voted for Jimmy Carter.
In the book, you also reveal who stole the Carter briefing books. Tell us the story behind that.
There was a longtime political operator who I knew very well by the name of Paul Corbin. Corbin was a Kennedy man, had worked in Wisconsin on the Kennedy primary in 1960, became close to Robert Kennedy, came to Washington, went on the payroll of the Democratic National Committee at the behest of Robert Kennedy, and grew very, very close to the family. And of course, in 1980, was supporting Teddy Kennedy over Jimmy Carter in the primaries. When Kennedy lost and gave his magnificent speech at the Madison Square Garden in August of 1980, he left and he stormed out and he told a friend he was going to work for Ronald Reagan, or for the Reagan campaign. And so he was put on a retainer by Bill Casey, who was Reagan's campaign manager. His job was ostensibly to organize labor politics for Reagan, but as a matter of fact, on his own, he had somehow gotten the Carter briefing books out of the Carter White House and gave them to Bill Casey, who then gave them to the research folks of the Reagan campaign. And so they were given to the Reagan research team, but they were deemed pretty much useless.
What role did William Casey play, and how critical was he to the campaign?
There'd been a growing distress within the Reagan campaign over the management of John Sears of the campaign. The campaign was losing money badly. Reagan's time was not being well managed. There were lots and lots of complaints, and it finally came to a head on the day of the New Hampshire primary in February of 1980, when Reagan won this astounding victory over George Bush that nobody expected that he was going to win. And so Casey immediately took over the campaign and set it financially to right, but he also brought in Ed Meese and Dick Wirthlin. They were already part of the campaign, but brought them into a closer management relationship with the campaign.
Now, Reagan battled the GOP establishment. Are we still seeing that kind of fight today?
Yes, we are, as a matter of fact. In fact, you know, the great historian George Santayana once said that those who fail to study history are doomed to repeat it. The Republican Party is making the mistakes, or did make the mistakes over the last 8 years in some ways that it made during the Nixon and Ford era, which was to move away from the base of the party, away from the people, and become big government Republicans. And that's what we heard over the last 8 years, was the embrace of big government republicanism.
Craig, I have a question. Yesterday I interviewed George W. Bush speechwriter Matt Latimer, who said that Bush abandoned Reaganism. Do you think that's true? Yes,
I do think that's true. Don't forget, in 1999, Bush was interviewed and asked if he was a small government conservative, and he said, no, I'm an efficient government conservative. In the 2000 campaign, when he was running for president against Al Gore, he never once called for the abolition of any federal program or the reduction of any type of federal spending whatsoever. And of course, spending exploded, greater than at any time, more so than the Great Society, greater than any time since the New Deal under the Bush administration. Yes, Latimer's correct.
Where were the Reagans during the Bush years, or when Ford abandoned policies like détente? Do we need a more aggressive, active voice in the GOP?
Yes, we need, and you're seeing that now. I think that you would have seen a more aggressive voice against Bush had it not been for September 11, 2001. I think that stanched or covered up a lot of wounds inside the Republican Party.
If President Reagan were alive today, would he be happy with the direction that this nation is heading? And what would he say about the job President Barack Obama and his administration are doing?
Well, I think he'd be like most Americans. He'd be very concerned about the direction of this country. I think, too, is that while he would salute the election of Barack Obama, showing that America truly is a pluralistic country, his policies, based on his record as president and his rhetoric, he would oppose.
Last question real quickly. Right now the Republican Party is struggling to define itself, with many divided on how best to move forward. Many politicians are still claiming the Reagan mantle, but there are others who say that the party needs to quit looking to the past and find a new way forward. What do you think?
We don't cast aside that which we learn from, which is the best of the past, is men of vision, men of principles, men of ideas, and to say so, I think, is very narrow-sighted. This is not about simply Ronald Reagan, the man, the inspirational person, the nice guy. This is about a man of utter stone, granite convictions, who had a view of the world, who had a view of government, who had a view of power, and a view of the American people. And from those things, as with Jefferson or with Abraham Lincoln, Americans should draw knowledge and inspiration.
All right, the book is Rendezvous with Destiny, Ronald Reagan and the Campaign That Changed America, available on Amazon.com. Author Craig Shirley, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Kathleen.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.
Sarah Palin's new book, Going Rogue in American Life, will be released on November 17th. You can be among the first to get your copy. Check out our incredible free offer for Sarah's new book. Just go to Newsmax.com and click on the top banner for this great offer. Act today.